At 9:23, June 14th, 2025, the USS Princeton was gliding through the South China Sea on yet another routine freedom of navigation patrol. Calm seas, steady course, nothing unusual. Then her radar painted something that made every operator stop mid-sentence. 200 kilometers out, a Chinese Type 052D destroyer, quiet all morning, suddenly roared from 18 knots to 30 in under 90 seconds. What the Americans didn't know was that her captain had just received orders from Beijing. Intercept the Americans. Make them blink first. Problem for Beijing? They were about to play chicken with the wrong navy, because just over the horizon the Nimitz carrier strike group, a floating city of war, had been doing what the US Navy does better than anyone, keeping the arteries of global trade wide open. The group was operating in international waters, 180 nautical miles from the nearest Chinese shore, smack in the middle of the $3.4 trillion trade superhighway that keeps the world turning, including China's own economy. At 0926, the Princeton's operators had the Chinese ship fully classified. Type 052D, threat rating, moderate to high. In the Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer tracked its vector with the kind of calm you only get when you're sitting on 122 vertical launch cells packed with SM-6s, missiles that could erase that destroyer before her crew even realized they were under attack. At current speed, the Chinese would enter weapons range in 17 minutes. Their YJ-18 anti-ship missiles could cover the remaining distance in under 4 minutes. But the Princeton's SM-6s could reach them from 240 nautical miles away and swat them like flies. By 9:29, the captain wanted an intent assessment. The answer? They'll be in firing range in 14 minutes. The recommendation? Go to general quarters. The captain's reply was pure American confidence. Let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves. And this was no empty waterway. The South China Sea was packed with merchant ships, a Singapore container ship stacked with semiconductors, a $200 million Korean LNG tanker, all counting on the U.S. Navy's presence to keep these lanes safe. At 9:30, the Princeton's cooperative engagement capability fed threat data to every ship in the strike group. The Nimitz, 104,000 tons of American steel carrying 90 of the most advanced aircraft on Earth, shifted flight ops with surgical precision. The destroyers Chung-Hoon and Kidd moved into defensive positions around the carrier. At 9:35, the picture changed from tense to dangerous. An E-2D Hawkeye flying at 25,000 feet picked up multiple fighters launching from the Chinese carrier Shandong, J-15S heading south. Struggling for altitude, a not-so-subtle sign of the ski-jump launch system's limits. Less fuel, fewer weapons, shorter fights. Then came the subcontact. Sonar picked up a Type 039 diesel-electric submarine, 80 nautical miles out. Loud, sloppy, obvious. The kind of acoustic signature you could hear from space. This wasn't just posturing. Beijing was staging a full multi-domain intimidation play. The problem? Their hardware was 20 years out of date. By 9:37, the Nimitz's deck came alive. FA-18E. Super Hornets launched every 45 seconds. The EA-18G Growlers moved into position, their jamming pods lighting up Chinese radar and comms until the sky itself became a hall of mirrors. On enemy scopes, American fighters appeared, disappeared, multiplied. Ghosts everywhere. The US fighters spread into a 3-layer wall formation, high, medium, and low altitude, each overlapping the other's kill zone. The Chinese stayed bunched up because their comms couldn't handle anything else. In modern air combat, that's like walking into a gunfight with a blindfold on. At 9:47, the Chinese destroyer stopped pretending. Her fire control radar locked directly onto the Nimitz. In naval warfare, that's pointing a loaded gun at someone's head. The Princeton didn't flinch. Her own fire control radar stayed in standby, but every firing solution was live, updated by the second. If the order came, that Chinese destroyer would be a memory in under 30 seconds. In the air, a J-15 tried to buzz a Hornet. The American rolled inverted, slid into perfect firing position behind him, and held it for 3 full seconds. The helmet display flared green, a perfect AIM-9X lock. One squeeze of the trigger and that J-15 would have been nothing but falling debris and black smoke on the horizon. But the trigger stayed still. The American pilot held his nerve. At 9:51, the Chinese submarine made its fatal blunder. It raised its snorkel to recharge batteries, completely unaware that the Princeton had been tracking it for over an hour. If the fight had gone hot, it wouldn't have had more than 12 seconds to realize its mistake before vanishing beneath the waves in a cloud of shattered steel. By early afternoon, the Chinese task force had boxed itself in. Carrier to the northwest, destroyer to the west, submarine to the southwest. In an actual shooting war, none of them would survive the first 5 minutes. At 14:30, the Nimitz stopped playing nice. Her deck exploded into motion as 48 aircraft thundered into the sky in the largest single-carrier air power show in years. Hornets loaded to the rails, Growlers, ready to blind every enemy sensor, Hawkeyes, taking command of the aerial battlespace. And then came the Dagger, a Virginia-class attack sub that had been shadowing the Shandong for 8 days without being detected. At 15:47, she broke the surface just 6 miles from the Chinese carrier, close enough for every lookout to see her black hull gleaming in the sun, close enough for every camera to capture the moment. 90 seconds later, she slipped silently back into the depths. The message was clear, undeniable, and humiliating. We own the deep. Overhead, the J-15s were running on fumes. One by one, they peeled off, heading home with fuel gauges flirting with empty. By 1623, the Shandong's group turned tail. Officially, they had completed scheduled exercises. In reality, they'd sailed out to flex their muscles and left with their pride in pieces. In the South China Sea, the scoreboard hasn't changed in decades. U.S. Navy, undefeated.